Hello, Slicey Dicers. This is Brian with another knife video for you. Today, we have my top 10 favorite slicers that I own. So obviously, the Cold Steel 4MAX Scout is on here. Of course, this is obviously a joke. I love a whole lot about the 4MAX Scout. It's a big, beefy thing. It's $110 and 10 ounces of silly, and I love it a lot. If you want to go outside and chop down a tree with a folding knife, this is your Huckleberry. But it is not a great slicer. So what does make a great slicer? What am I looking for in this? Well, there's four things that I think make a really good slicer. Very thin behind the edge. That is extremely important. Most of the stuff you're going to see here is well under 20 thousandths behind the edge. Very thin blade stock. That's also very good when you're gliding through a lot of stuff. Some thin blade stock is just going to do that better. It's just physics. It's going to work better. Good steel. Not all these are super steels, not all these are super expensive knives, but something that's going to at least hold an edge long enough for, when I think of slicing, I mostly think of like, cardboard cutting. So if you're out, processing cardboard for the recycling bin or whatever, something that's going to hold an edge at least, if you're out there doing that for an hour or two, something that's going to hold an edge long enough for that. And fourthly, a really good factory edge. Obviously, you can put your own edge on stuff, you can make them amazing, but that's not what I'm doing. I'm assuming that everyone watching this doesn't have the skills to do that. So stuff that has a really good factory edge. Cold Steel has an amazing factory edge, and this thing slices way better than it should, but it's not in this video. So let's get going. Get everything rolling. First of all, these are in no particular order whatsoever. They're just kind of the order that I got the notes for them. I'm going to mention the thickness behind the edge and the blade thickness in all of them. So first of all, we have the TRM Atom. 18 thousandths behind the edge, just 0.09 inch blade stock, very, very thin, 20 Cevi steel, and about $220. Now, I will say, you could easily put the Neutron in this one. The Neutron is 3 inches long, basically the same kind of blade profile, the same kind of thickness behind the edge. It's still an awesome knife. You could interchange the Neutron for this. I really like the Atom. This is a 3.5 inch blade, and it is wearing currently the Gicarda scales, they call it, with the I call it the Starry Night pattern. I think they call it something else, but we're not here to talk about how pretty the scales are, even though they're extremely pretty. There are lots and lots of scale options for TRMs. One of the great things about them, but it is a slicing machine for sure. I do like the 3.5 inch blade because you can make longer cuts, and this is one of my kind of sort of go-to knives for processing cardboard. I've had this for the longest of any of the knives on here. Like I said, I changed the scales a whole lot. I have resharpened it myself, but the factory edge was fantastic. I had no complaints there. Just a great, great, great slicer. Now, next up, this is also in the category of knives that I have just for me. You guys have seen this on the channel. I still have not done a full review on it, but the Microtech LUDT. You don't think of automatics when you think of slicey, but there are two of them on here, and the LUDT is definitely one of them. Now, they use a variety of blade steels. This one happens to be M490 or M390. It's frequently, M390 or 204P or something like that. It's usually an M390 variant. Awesome steel, and 14 thousandths behind the edge. Very, very thin. Blade stock of just 0.12 inches, and they only cost about $237. A whole lot of people think that these are horribly expensive, but they're really not. It's just that Microtech doesn't make a lot of them, so they're exclusive, but not expensive. I always say with Microtechs, if you find one that's close to the spec that you want, just get it, because who knows when it's going to come out again. And but I do really, really love this knife. Yes, it is purple and completely blends in with this background, but the other ones blended in more with my gray background, so LUDT lost out on this one. So I'm going to have one invisible knife on this. But yes, it is an auto, great action, all that stuff. But yeah, the M390 is a great steel, and it's so thin behind the edge. And this is a knife that you guys kind of convinced me to buy. It wasn't really on my radar, and I love it so much that I got it in the purple, to match the website, because it's a keeper for sure. But an amazing slicer. It's just a fantastic slicer. I really do love the LUDT. This blade on this it's one of the best blades that I have on any knife that I have. Forget that it's an auto. It's just just a fantastic, fantastic blade. Please make this in a manual for people who can't carry autos. Please do that, Microtech. That would be amazing. I think if this was a button lock manual, they would not be able to make enough of these. Maybe that's why they don't do it. Next up, we have a fairly new addition as well, the Knives Kitefin. This is a huge step for Knives. I think these are like about $160. You're looking at 13.5 thousandths behind the edge and a blade thickness of just 0.10 inches. It has some influences from their budget line, Cevi, and I don't think that's a bad thing at all. Very good steel, S35 VN, and just a great slicer. I really do enjoy using this thing. It's a laser beam, all those adjectives you want to use. Lots of Cevivis and Weezar. You're going to see another Cevivi as we go down here, but this one for the price. This is the carbon fiber one. They also come in titanium. It's also super light. It's well under 2.5 ounces. It's just a very lightweight, easy to carry knife, and just great at slicing. Cevivi and we really know how to make a knife actually cut, and that's why we buy them. Just a great slicer. I'm very impressed with the Kitefin, but the more and more I use it, and we offer several variants. It seems like a model that they're really kind of leaning all in on. I think you're going to see even more Kitefin variants as time goes on. So yeah, go check one of these out. They are awesome. I am going to try to link to reviews of all these down below. For the ones that I've reviewed, I have not reviewed every single one of them. Next up, there's going to be a couple Spydercos on here. First of all, I would say kind of a classic now. The Spyderco Chaparral XHP steel. Love the steel. You're looking at 18 thousandths behind the edge. Blade stock of just 0.08 inches. Super thin. Price of about $140 for this version. But you can get the lightweight version for under $100, and it's with the FRN scales, and it's still the same XHP steel, exact same blade. Just doesn't look as pretty. It is a bit lighter, as the name would indicate, the Chaparral lightweight, but I prefer this one. But man, this thing can cut. I really like having this in my pocket, and it is sort of in this carbon version, sort of quasi-gentlemanly, and that's the kind of things you're doing, cutting strings off of stuff, opening a box, something like that. You're not doing anything super heavy duty. You just want something that can slice. Is it a good piercer? No. A lot of these are not great piercers, but it is, you can definitely stab into lightweight stuff with no effort whatsoever, but you don't want to be stabbing into wood or anything like that, but it's just a fantastic little slicer, and the ergos are good, which I know that's not what we're here for, but oh god, it's such a slicey little blade. Really love the blade on the Chaparral. It is kind of become timeless, I would say. Next up, another in the Cevivi lineup, we have the very appropriately named Shredder. Sometimes Cevivi and we have silly names. Looking at you, Asticus. But the Shredder, there's never been a more appropriately named knife ever. D2 steel. China D2 is a bit hit and miss sometimes, but Cevivi's is excellent. And you are looking at 13 thousandths behind the edge. I believe that's the thinnest one here. Yeah, the thinnest one here. Nice hollow grind. Blade stock of just 0.12 inches. And about $60. And man, this thing will shred some cardboard. It is a cardboard destroyer par excellence, or paper, or whatever you're cutting through, foam, anything like that. This thing will absolutely handle it. And it's also a big, good sized blade. You're looking at, I gotta jump off camera here. Yeah. 4-inch blade. Lose a little cutting edge with that forward finger choil, but it's nice when you're actually cutting on stuff that you really care about the sliciness with. And yeah, pretty easy to carry for the size. It is a fantastic, I'm gonna say in this price range, quasi beater slicer. If you just want to if you have a lot of expensive knives, you want to have one inexpensive knife that you use to go out and do, like I said, processing, recycling, things like that. Yeah, this is your jam. The Shredder, amazing knife, and only $60. Now, next up, we're going to have another auto. I know I can't believe there's two autos on this, but I'm kind of been on an auto jam lately, so not unsurprising. But that would be the Protec Newport. About 18 thousandths behind the edge, so not super slim behind the edge, but blade thickness of just 0.10 inches. And these are, again, also not expensive. People think Protecs are crazy. $165. It's not inexpensive for this version, I will say. I think part of the reason why that Protec gets a reputation as being horribly expensive is, yeah, it's $165 for the base one. It's S35 VN steel. Really good smooth action automatic. Pretty good value. But if you want to, yeah, you could spend $1,000 on one of these, no problem. Protec does like all kinds of custom options. You can spend a whole lot of money on a Protec Newport. But the base one, they all have S35 VN steel, all basically the same blade. But you get all kinds of custom, hand scrolled versions and things like that, and they become very, very expensive. But this is just the base one, and I carry the Sonata, this super light, and it just, man, it's just so slicey and just so easy to use. Opening boxes and all that stuff, it's not even a thought. I have not encountered anything I couldn't cut through this. I actually had this in my pocket the other day when we bought beef jerky in like a brick. My son and I, we were on the internet and we're stuck in our houses and we did a silly thing. And I grabbed 2 kitchen knives, was having a hard time cutting it. This had no problems whatsoever. So, yeah, it just happened to be what was in my pocket that day, and it worked great at it. So if you want a beef jerky cutter, yeah, this is pretty good. I can authorize in a very specific task that it's pretty good. Next up, we're going to go with the Ferrum Forge Mini Archbishop. Another pretty budget offering. These are right around $75. This is the carbon fiber one that was for sale only through ferrumforge.com. I think these were $95, but the ones you're going to find most places, they're still made by Cevi. Again, you're going to see a theme going here. Like I said, they know how to make a slicey knife. But yeah, $75 for the G10 version, $95 for the carbon. I don't think they have them in stock right now, but I'm sure they will again soon. But you are looking at about 17 thousandths behind the edge at 0.12 inch blade stock, and like I said, $75 to $95. I like the ergos on it, which do matter for sliciness as well, but I'm not really trying to focus on that a whole lot in this video. 9CR18 MOV steel, which I love. Now, a lot of people are going to say, you said premium steels are good steels. That's not a good steel. It is. 9CR18 is really, really, really good. I really like it for a budget steel. It's one of my absolute favorites. Preferred over D2. When I have an option on a Cevi to get 9CR or D2, I go for the 9CR. People lump it in with 8CR13 MOV. It is not. It is completely different, and it is a much, much better steel, and Cevi does a great heat treat on it. All my 9CR Cevi's I like a whole lot. I could have put the Backlash on here as well, which is a 9CR18, and it's a great slicer for a budget knife, but I put other Cevi's on here instead. I think the Shredder's just a little bit better, so that's why it's not on here. But I do love the 9CR. I have no issues there. So, I know Ferrum Forge. I know for a fact because I spoke to the boys over there, those handsome gentlemen, and they said when they designed this knife, we want it to be 9CR. They know a lot more than they've forgotten more than I'm ever going to know about knives. So I'm not going to argue with them. It's just a really great knife. This is the Ferrum Forge Mini Archbishop. Next up, we have another very appropriately named knife, because I cut myself on it once, the Steel Will Screamer. I did not cut myself because of anything to do with the knife. I just was opening the box and being an idiot, and I have a scar now. And yeah, be very careful with this one, because you're looking at 18 thousandths behind the edge, 0.14 inch blade stock, so thicker blade stock than almost anything, or than anything else on this list, but it has that really nice, really high flat grind, and it's still very thin behind the edge, and Steel Will does a great job with their factory edges. They are always super, super sharp, and yeah, this thing will cut, absolutely. I was opening a plastic a clamshell box when I managed to cut myself. Isn't that how we always cut ourselves? Clamshell boxes are the devil's work. But nailed myself with it, and I didn't even feel it at first. Like it's just that sharp and just that great of a slicer. It was sliding through the plastic very, very more easily than I expected, and I got myself. But a great slicer. And the Screamer is also just, I know that's not what we're here for, but just look at that thing. That's just an undeniably pretty knife. You can't deny that in any way whatsoever. So, and it's D2 steel, again, China D2 up and down, but steel wheels has always been pretty decent in my experience. So not going to knock them there. So yeah, steel wheel Screamer, $64. Now, lastly, we have two other fairly new knives. This one is very new. I've only had it for a day, but I'm extremely impressed with the slicing performance of it. That would be the brand new, take a deep breath, Dougritter Mini RSK Mark 1-G2 made by Hogue. I got through it. But this is the thickest behind the edge. You're looking at about the 24 thousandths, so definitely the thickest behind the edge, but very thin blade stock, 0.09 inches, about $140. It is a smaller version of their previous release, which is also a pretty good slicer, but doesn't quite make the list. The RSK Mark 1-G2, the full-size one, 20 CV steel, amazing steel. But the reason why it pushes it over is this is very thin blade stock. It's it's a fairly high flat grind, but the reason why it makes it is Hogue's edges are just the best. Of like production knives, them and cold steel are like neck and neck, the best I ever get. I don't have a cold steel on here. I came really close on a couple of them, but a couple of them were still just a bit too thick behind the edge. The Airlight very, 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 very nearly made it. But this is a top 10, and I didn't want to expand it out to 15 or 20. So, sorry, Airlight, I love you, but it just barely didn't make it. It's still a great slicer, and I love a lot of things about the Airlight other than its slicing capability. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. Amazing edges on these Hogues. They are just so good, and this is just such a great slicer. I actually did use this yesterday I keep making this analogy about processing cardboard for recycling. I'm waving my hand off screen, by the way. I don't know why I'm doing that, just for dramatic effect that you can't see. But I did actually do that with this as soon as I got it the other day, and we had a whole bunch of packages delivered. The cardboard by the front door was piling up. I literally took this out of the box, flipped it open, and started doing that, and it works amazingly well. Just a fantastic little slicer. It's so much better of a slicer than the regular version, which again I said is not bad, but they didn't just scale down the size of the handles or the length of the blade, they also scaled down the thickness of the blade, which I love that. Great slicer. I'm not going to say the whole name again because I'd have to take another big deep breath because it's a really long name. And then lastly, another fairly new addition and another Spyderco, the Watu. I know that some people really hate the way it looks. I don't. But this kind of Wharncliffe-y blade, I think they call this a clip point. I would definitely call this like a modified Wharncliffe. But again, 20 CV steel. You're looking at 16 thousandths behind the edge. Blade thickness of 0.095 inches. And $182. It is a Taichung made Spyderco. And oh man, this thing is a laser beam. I just was really impressed with this. This is a knife that kind of made me pause this video. So was the Mini RSK, the one you just saw before this. I kept trying to make this video, and every time I was ready to do it, something new came in, and it made me want to hold the video back and add another knife to it. And then I added another one, and then I had to reevaluate and figure out what stuff was going in. A lot of these knives you will see are new, and we'll get to that in the conclusions here in a moment. But yeah, great little slicer. I really like the Watu a whole lot. I don't care if you think it's ugly. I think it looks fine. It carries well. It works great. And it is just, for my kind of EDC task, it is nigh on perfect. This blade, anyway, is nigh on perfect. So yeah, like I said, I kept having to pause this video because I'm happy about this. But I think a lot of, in the industry right now, people are orienting more towards EDC stuff. So they really make knives that, shockingly, can cut things. What a unique concept. And I'm very, very happy to see that for my usage. Yes, if you are into more of a hardcore environment, you work on a work site, you're a law enforcement officer or something like that, you may want stuff with a tougher blade. I totally get that. But I think for the average person, which is the majority of the market that just wants a good EDC knife, sliciness matters, and people are starting to figure that out, and I'm very, very happy about that. I think the trend is upward, and I very much appreciate it. I can't even name one company that's leading the way anymore. I mean, I guess it used to be we and Cevi, but now everybody's doing it. So really liking that about the knife industry, and a whole lot of really good slice knives. I could have easily made this a 20 knife list, but I put it on myself to cut it down to 10. I mean, I have 4 or 5 sitting here within sight that I almost put in the list, and I cut at the last minute. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I've really enjoyed making it. I've been Brian. Have a good one.